The House will come to order. Please join Representative Basenecker in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gregorio, please call the roll.
Representatives Amabile, Bacon, Baisley, Benavidez, Burnett, Byrd, Bockenfeld, Basenecker, Bradfield, Caraveo, Carver, Catlin, Cutter, Doherty, Representative Duran, Escar, Exum,
Morning, sir.
Froelich, Geithner, Gonzalez Gutierrez, Gray, Hanks, Harrod, Holtorf, Hooten, Representative Hooten. Representative Hooten is excused. Jackson.
Here.
Judah. Kennedy. Kipp. Larson. Representative Larson. Representative Larson is excused. Lontine. Luck. Lynch. McCluskey. McCormick. McKean. McLaughlin.
Present.
Michelson Janae. Mullica. Neville. Representative Neville is excused. Ortiz. Pelton. Pico. Ransom. Rich. Ricks. Roberts. Sandridge. Representative Sandridge. Sirota. Snyder. Soper. Representative Soper. Representative Soper is excused. Sullivan. Tipper. Titone. Valdez A. Representative Valdez A. Representative Valdez A is excused. Valdez D. Van Bever. Van Winkle. Weissman. Will. Williams. Woodrow. Roog. Young. And Mr. Speaker.
The 60 present, 61 present, 4 excused. We have a quorum. Representative Basenecker.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Journal of Wednesday, May 5, 2021 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
The question before us is the motion to approve the journal as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have a tribute, and I would ask Mr. Gregorio to read the Tardive Dyskinesia tribute at length.
State of Colorado, the House of Representatives, convened in the 73rd General Assembly, hereby extends sincere commendations and recognitions to Tardive Dyskinesia Week. The members of the Colorado House of Representatives would like to recognize the week of May 2nd as Tardive Dyskinesia Week. Many people with serious chronic mental illness such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, severe depression, or gastrointestinal disorders, including gastroparesis, nausea, and vomiting, require treatment with medications that work as dopamine receptor blocking agents, DRBAs, including antipsychotics. While ongoing treatment with these medications can be very helpful and even life-saving for many people, it can also lead to tardive dyskinesia, TD. Tardive dyskinesia is a movement disorder that is characterized by random, involuntary, and uncontrolled movements of different muscles in the face, trunk, and extremities, and can develop months, years, or decades after a person starts taking DRBAs, and even after they have discontinued use of these medications. The Colorado House of Representatives wishes to raise awareness of tardive dyskinesia in the public and medical community and encourage all Coloradans to become better informed about this issue. On request of Representative Daphne Michelson Janae, given the 6th day of May, 2021, State Capitol, Denver.
Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members, how many of you have heard of tardive dyskinesia? How many of you can say tardive dyskinesia? And see that, like, now we have 3 hands up in the room. This is Mental Health Awareness Week, and understanding what tardive dyskinesia is and how it may impact you or your family or your community is important in the total package of what mental health challenges our community faces. So if you're not aware of tardive dyskinesia, come find me on the floor, and I'm happy to share lots more information with you. And today, the House of Representatives is honored to recognize those who suffer with tardive dyskinesia and those who are recovering from tardive dyskinesia.
Thank you. Any more announcements and introductions? Representative Hooton.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members, I have received permission from the Majority Leader to be excused this afternoon and until Monday morning at 7 a.m. And while I have your attention, members, I'd like to remind everyone that the coffee that we enjoy every day and the snacks provided to us from the assignables come with a certain expense. And if you would all reach into your wallets and make a donation in the cups that are available on the floor, the assignables would appreciate it, and it will keep our coffee and snacks coming. So thank you all.
Thank you. And Representative McLaughlin.
Yes, good morning, everyone. We do have Education Committee at 1:30 today in room 107. We will be hearing Senate Bill 191, House Bill 1294, and Senate Bill 151. I'll see you there. Thanks.
Thank you. Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members, if it's Thursday, it's finance again. And I want to remind you, we're going to be meeting upon adjournment. So whenever we adjourn, about 10 minutes afterwards, please make your way to House Committee Room 112. And a reminder, we are laying over House Bill 1189, which is showing on our calendars, but we're going to lay that over. And we will be hearing House Bill 1159. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members of House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs, we will also be meeting 10 minutes upon adjournment in LSBA to hear House Bill 1277, House Bill 1287, and Senate Bill 132. We're going to make a slight change to the order, and we will be doing Senate Bill 132 first.
Thank you. Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Business Affairs and Labor Committee, we have a meeting this afternoon at 1:30 in room 112. We have House Bill 1290 and House Bill 1293. See you there.
Representative Catlin. And Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. It is an honor to serve with you.
And you as well, sir.
Thank you. We wanted to come up today and talk about the Colorado Agricultural Hall of Fame. Last night we got to go to the banquet, and I want to thank Representative Lynch for the ticket that he spent his hard-earned money on, and I haven't paid him back, and I don't intend to. But anyway, it was a great thing, and we had three honorees inducted last night, and one of them's a great man from Representative Catlin's district. Nick Gray's an icon of the West Slope, I guess.
Yeah, he was.
Definitely an icon. A friend of mine, Bob Deneen, that does processing plant right over in northeast of Denver, does Buffalo, came to Colorado in about 1982, started the Rocky Mountain Natural Meats. Want to give him a shout out. He's a great man with the really contributing to agriculture in this state, and also we have a very dear mutual friend. And we have then one other honoree, Al Garace, but I'll let Representative Catlin talk about Mr. Gray first.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, this is about a man that lived for 100 years. He was born in the early 1900s and lived one of the fullest lives of anybody that I know of. He served in World War II. He was a survivor of Pearl Harbor. He would talk about that as he approached his later years and could never tell you that story without getting tears in his eyes. He was an incredible man. He built over 3,000 miles of right-of-way through the mountains that we see our power lines running through. That was him and his small company. He ran a lot of cattle. He ran about 700 or 800 head of cattle on around 18,000 acre ranch, all acquired by his own hand. Last night at his induction into the Hall of Fame, there was a video put on, and last night they awarded 4 full-time, full-ride scholarships to individuals from the Montrose County, Montrose or the old town of Olathe, full rides out of his foundation. And I'm telling you, it's an incredible feat because this man started out without anything. Was born into 11 kids, started riding a horse when he was 3 years old, learned to work when he was 3 years old. One of his watchwords, and I'm going to close with this because I can't really tell you too much more about him because he was that kind of a man. He was bigger than life. When I got elected, he'd known me since I was born. And he called me on the telephone and said, "Representative Catlin, I need to see you out at the ranch." And I got in my pickup and I went. We got there and he talked to me about these are the things I'm going to need. These are the things that are going wrong in agriculture. These are the things that you need to be thinking about. And you know, when I got here, that was exactly right. And he would always say to you when you left his house or you left his company, "Mark, I want you to work hard and save your money." That was his watchwords. And his life proved that out. Last night, there were 4 young people in that community that their lives have been completely changed because he worked hard and saved his money. He was a truly, truly honorable man, and being in the Hall of Fame is kind of the tip of the cap for a life well lived.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I echo and mirror those words about Nick Gray that Representative Catlin just said. I actually knew Nick Gray myself from down my short time in Montrose, and I have a zillion stories I could tell you, but I'll spare you that. He was everything that Rep. Catlin said. And I want to talk about Mr. Bob Deneen that was honored last night as well. And he's one of the only USDA-inspected bison slaughterhouses out there in Brush. And he provides a lot of this meat, buffalo meat,
Members,
to the grocers.
it's getting a little loud. Let's please pay attention to the speaker in the well. If you need to carry on conversations, please step out.
To all our grocers and food service customers around Colorado and elsewhere out of the state. But it's a great business. Bob built this years ago, and he did it to improve food safety and quality control. He established regulations alongside the FDA, USDA, and Rocky Mountain Natural Meats is now the largest bison processor in North America
and employs over 200 people. Repeat, employs over 200 people. These people are all contributing to agriculture in the state of Colorado. And if you don't like that part of agriculture in Colorado and you like the urban part, we also had Mr. Al Gerace inducted last night. And Al does a nursery business right here in the urban area of Denver. And so, from the West Slope to the packing house to the urban farmer right here. So all aspects were covered last night, and want to give all these inductees a big shout out, and think we ought to give them a round of applause from the House. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Valdez, D.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Good morning, my friends, members, colleagues. And also I want to thank my colleagues who attended the Farm Credit Colorado Hall of Fame last night with me. And hi, Evan, how are you? Because you're going to be our next farmer and rancher, right? But I want to give a big shout out to those who put it on. And also to our commissioner who gave a great speech, Commissioner Greenberg, about the importance of agriculture and where it comes from and how important it is. Hi, Evan. But also to the Colorado FFA officer team, who not only put it on with distinguished professionalism, but also pride, and proud of where they come from here in the state of Colorado, from our small communities, from all over Colorado to represent us. That's right, represent us. Represent agriculture. Hi, Evan. That's right. But also with that, Mr. Wirtz, who gave a great presentation and a beautiful speech about the importance of ag. And to the three that were inducted last night to the Colorado Hall of Fame, thank you for your hard work, for your dedication, not only to your family, to your friends, to your community, what you continue to do and stand up for ag every single day and advocate. Why? Because if you had coffee this morning, well, first thank my Uncle Juan, but thank a farmer. But if you ate breakfast this morning, thank a farmer. But also know where that meal came from and how important it is. Because on my farm, I know where my food comes from. When you grow it, you know what's in it. You know how it tastes, the flavor. But if you just pick it up at a distribution place, you don't know where it comes from and what's in it. Right, Evan?
Right.
Because Evan here is going to grow up to be a farmer. Right? That's absolutely right. But one other thing, members, is important to education. And if you could help a teacher that has continued to support agriculture, please make a donation to the Colorado FFA and those who are supporting ag today, because we need all the support we can help and move forward. With that, thank you, and thank Evan. Say hi, Evan. Hi.
Thank you, Representative Valdez. Is there any more announcements or introductions? Representative Holtorf.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem, I request a moment of personal privilege.
Moment of personal privilege is granted. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. The institution of the Colorado House of Representatives demands the highest level of decorum. It is my desire to do everything in my power to elevate the discussions that matter to the people of all our districts in Colorado. I think we can all do better in understanding one another's perspectives. And for myself, it starts with me. We are, each of us, only here in this chamber for a brief moment in time. This institution that we serve is more important than any of us and deserves our commitment to do our best each and every day. It is an honor to serve here with each and every one of you. It is a blessing to learn about our experiences from different parts of this state. I hope you all understand that I see all of you as my brothers and sisters, all created by God and all equal. I cherish working with you each and every day. And Mr. Speaker, I especially appreciate your leadership. I look forward to working with you in the future under your guidance and leadership. You all have my sincerest apologies. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Representative Holtorf. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. And members, you can be seated. You don't have to stand. On our first day together, my first day as Speaker, I spoke about my family. I spoke about family. I spoke about my family in particular. I also spoke about the members of this chamber who I consider to be family, members from both sides of the aisle. I told you a story about the minority leader, Representative Neville, and the majority leader, and how we became very close on a trip that we went on together. I was sincere when I expressed how much I value and valued those individuals, not as leaders, not as representatives, but as humans and friends. And I spoke about building a sense of community and family amongst all of you. I talked about the spirit I wanted to create as Speaker in this building, a spirit of cooperation and empathy and giving. I want to share a quick story with all of you. A few weeks ago, on one of the first warm Sundays this spring, my family, who does not live far from this building, decided to go for a walk. My son, who's 5 and is getting very good at riding his bike, set off on his bike. My daughter Adela jumped into her red convertible with a handle which I pushed. My 8-month pregnant wife joined on the walk as well, and so did our little bulldog Cleopatra. We're walking around the neighborhood, and out of the corner of my eye, and from behind me, somebody says, "Representative Garnett." And I turn around, and Representative Will and his wife are standing in the parking lot of the market in my neighborhood. And I stop, and I get to introduce my family to Representative Will. Representative Will and his wife got to share with me the experiences of settling in to their home away from their home. We commented on the spring weather. I kept getting nervous that one of my kids was going to lose their cool and embarrass the whole clan. They didn't. And sometimes that's all it takes for us to reconnect as humans. We all work hard, but the people of Colorado expect us at the end of the day to treat each other with respect, and I expect the same of you too. We all know one of the lessons of a successful family is not to say things that hurt each other. Sometimes that rule is broken. Whether intentionally or not, it hurts every member of the family. Yesterday, that rule was broken. And not to be dramatic, but the situation did break my heart. Why? You've all heard me speak about the importance of maintaining the rules and decorum of this house. I've stressed the gravity of upholding the decorum and the dignity of this institution from day one. I talk about it with everyone who will listen. I do it not because I believe in tradition for tradition's sake, but because I know those who came before us did it, and it's our responsibility to show those who come after us that we can do it too. The decorum of our institution is best viewed through the eyes of our sergeants, our front desk staff, and our assignables. Those who many have been serving long before any of us, and those who will be serving long after us. They aren't paid to tell us how we make them feel. They're paid to keep a poker face and maintain the institution to do the people's work. Yesterday, the decorum of this institution was grossly breached. I'm sorry to say this was not the first time this session, but I'm speaking today in hopes of making it the last. I'm here to make it crystal clear, so long as I'm speaker, discriminatory remarks, whether intentionally launched or carelessly said, have absolutely no place in this house. Last night, I thought about what was seen through the eyes of our staff and felt by many of you in this chamber. Members, we are public servants. For a few short years, we've been given the sacred trust of our voters, using the privileges of our office to act recklessly or aggressively, shout out of turn, yell at one another or at another member inside this chamber, or speak in a way that is anything other than respectful, mindful, and precise is a violation of that sacred trust. We are blessed to serve among the most diverse body in the history of Colorado, of this state. This body is the most diverse that has ever served and sat in these chairs. Our colleagues from all walks of life bring with them unique life experiences and perspectives, some that are gracing the House floor for the very first time. Our diversity is our strength. The diversity of our thoughts and experiences are what makes the policy solutions coming out of the chamber more representative of the communities in which we serve here in Colorado. I believe so firmly in the power and potential of this institution, and I'm committed to being its fiercest defender. It's not about any individual in this chamber. It's about our great state. It's about its people, about giving Coloradans hope in the idea that their government represents the best in all of us. Our strongest bond is each other. The fact we come from 65 different districts, different communities, different regions, and different parties, but the same state. None of us would have been friends or colleagues in the real world. Representative Will and his wife would have never said hi to me on the street had we not served in this chamber together. Our paths would have never crossed. The relationships we have with each other are the most unique part of our service. That's why we must protect each other. That's why every word we say in this well matters, because if just one word hurts one of us, takes one of us to a past life they thought they had outlived. And let me reiterate that. I made a lot of calls last night. One of the calls, when stuff gets tough in here, I call one person and I listen more than I talk. And I heard last night about how one word took this member of our body back to a place that they thought they had outlived. Let that sink in. Here in the body, in the House of Representatives, one word took them back to a place that they hoped would never reappear, feelings of a darker time. If that happens, we have failed in our basic duties to respect one another. It is easy to forget that our words, our reactions in these seats, and how we choose to disagree with each other on the floor of the Colorado House of Representatives are forever enshrined in the public record. They become the history of Colorado. There is no place for casual. Every action we take when we are on the green carpet must be led with thoughtfulness and precision. Words and actions always matter. Here, right here, they matter even more. Let's set the example. Let's behave ourselves like the role models we were elected to be. Let's come down here and demonstrate to our constituents and to the state as a whole that we can discuss big ideas, thorny issues, and complex policies without devolving into actions deliberately meant to hurt one another. Let's prove during this deeply divided time in our nation's history that political differences can be overcome with thoughtful dialogue. In our long hour-long conversation yesterday, Representative Holtorf and I were very open and frank with each other. I want to say on the record that I'm thankful you agreed to do your part to reset the decorum of this institution above all else. And you have my commitment to continue to work with you after session, to continue to make sure that we're doing everything we can to put this institution first. I encourage all of us to join to better understand each other, invest in the relationships with one another. Sometimes in a household, in my household, we talk about reset. It's that moment where everything feels like it's out of control. I wasn't on the floor yesterday, but I watched it, and it felt out of control. This is our moment to pledge to one another to do better and to reset, to understand that we can start over. That is my expectation of all of us, including me, that from this day forward, we treat each other with the amount of respect that we all deserve as representatives. We were all elected by the same number of people and the same size of districts across this state, and the fact that they're all different is how it's meant to be, how it's always been. Let's take this moment. Let's reset. We have challenges ahead, challenges where we're not going to agree with each other, but let's show the rest of the state of Colorado that we can do it in a way that raises the level of our dialogue and doesn't allow for the deep divisions that are outside this building that I cannot solve by myself to creep into this building. Thank you very much. You can. I put it in the trash. Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to lay over third reading of bills final passage till tomorrow, May 7th.
Seeing no objection, third reading of bills will be laid over 1 day per the motion by the Majority Leader. The next order of business is general order, second reading of bills. Representative Titone. You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Titone will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for a bill to be read at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads, and bills will be laid over upon the request of Majority Leader. And the coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 171.
Senate Bill 171 by Senator Gardner, also Representative Snyder and Soper, concerning the Uniform Fiduciary Income and Principal Act.
Whoops.
Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and may I say that it is an extreme honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you too, Representative Snyder. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will move Senate Bill 171.
All right, to the bill. Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, folks, this is a one in a long line of pieces of the Uniform Trust Code that Colorado adopted back in 2018, but there were sections of it that needed more work. So some wonderful practitioners have spent the last 2 years working for a way to try and incorporate the Uniform Trust Code sections here having to do with accounting and how you account for various trust assets into the Colorado Code. And specifically, they wanted to make sure that the portions of the Colorado Code that many prior trusts and other documents have been prepared under are maintained while incorporating the new modernized trust accounting rules. And with that, I'll turn it over to my more than capable co-prime sponsor.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you, too.
So this is really just a modernization of Colorado's Fiduciary and Income Principle Act, but not to be confused with the other two acts that we have on the books. That's why the acronym of this one will be the Uniform Fiduciary Income and Principle Act, or UFIPA. The one that's currently on our books is UPIA, which is the Uniform Income and Principle Act. If you think about the history of income and principle for fiduciaries, it goes back to 1933. Colorado didn't adopt it that year, but we did in 1955. And then the last time we had any sort of a revision to this area of law was 30 years ago. And so this just clarifies and helps assist fiduciaries in making their logical and consistent accounting decisions when what to deal with certain receipts while being able to make equitable distributions to beneficiaries. This is really assisting legally in the role so that not to undo what's in the trust document, but it's just guiding those trustees in how to interpret that. And that's basically the entire bill right there.
Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just to sum it up, really, it brings recognition that, the investment world has changed. It's always in the past been income and principal were dealt with separately. This takes a total trust approach and allows more flexibility to the trustees to get the best return they can for the beneficiaries. And with that, I would ask for a yes vote.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 171? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 171. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. All right, well, the ayes have it. Senate Bill 171 is adopted.
Getting better at this.
Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 30.
Senate Bill 30 by Senator Holbert, also Representatives Van Winkle and Titone, concerning criminal theft of rental property.
Representative Van Winkle.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I move Senate Bill 30 and the Judiciary Committee report.
To the committee report, Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the Judiciary Committee report is essentially the bill now. We changed up the words a little with the great help of the Judiciary Committee Chairman, who is about 7 feet away from me right now, Representative Mike Weissman. Thanks to his help with the bill. And when we get to the bill, I will speak more to it.
Further comments on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report to Senate Bill 30. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. The committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Titone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 30 is about criminal theft of rental property, and this bill was brought to us by some folks in our respective districts who own different property, these rental companies. And the thing about rental property is that, just because you buy something for $500 and then you rent it out doesn't mean that it doesn't have a lot more value to that rental company than the $500 that you paid for it. To the rental company, it could be $20,000 or $30,000 of the life of that product. So we wanted to make sure that there was a bit of a compensatory way of people to get the money back for the loss of revenue that they have if those items are stolen.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my friend Dan Pabon, he ran a bill in 2013 that streamlined these statutes regarding rental property and theft. And when it came to those criminal offenses, it actually the Pabon bill it actually streamlined those and merged them into one essentially thing. So there's no longer a rental theft and a theft. It all came together. And so what has happened is there is a void in law because these are large, heavy machines that are, $20, $30, $40, $50,000, and they're rented for a short period of time. If that machine isn't returned for weeks and months on end, that is a lot of lost profit for the renter. And so what we're looking to do here is fill a void in current law because rental property isn't necessarily the same. It's not really shoplifting. It's not breaking and entering. But this helps us do it, and thanks to the Judiciary Committee and the Chair for helping us craft a bill that is acceptable by all.
Not the first Pabon cleanup bill, probably won't be the last. Any further comments on Senate Bill 30? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 30. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Senate Bill 30 is adopted. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1239.
House Bill 1239 by Representatives Kipp and Basenecker, also Senator Rodriguez, concerning adding protections for consumers who purchase certain items.
Representative Kipp.
Thank you, members. I move HB 1239 and the Business and Affairs and Labor Committee report.
Okay, to the report.
Well, to the report, actually, we do have amendment for the report, but in the committee, we actually did have a strike below. And we have been working with all of our stakeholders over time, and so we did a strike below, and then we amended it. But we do have one more amendment today.
And that amendment, members, should be on your desk.
L013, if I could move L013. And then after all the work we did on it, the American Bar Association reached out to us and basically wanted to clean up the language. And we're actually working with the Attorney General. So the Attorney General is working with the Department of Law and with the American Bar Association. And I am not a lawyer, but I think that it all looks pretty good to me. So it's on your desk. Please have a look.
Okay. Any further comment on Amendment L003?
L013.
No. Oh, 013. Any further discussion on Amendment L013? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L013. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the ayes have it. Amendment L013 is adopted. To the report. Any further discussion on the report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Business Affairs and Labor Report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right, the ayes have it. The report is adopted. To the bill.
Well, thank you, members. So this bill was brought to me originally by a constituent, and I know it's a rather odd bill because it has two major parts. The first part is all about basically dating apps, like online dating apps. So it basically allows a 3-day cooling off period. It allows people to basically rescind that purchase or online subscription for 3 days after the initial purchase. So that's the first part of the bill. The second part of the bill has to do with online auto renewals. And I'll be honest with you, we smushed two bills into one here because we do theoretically have a 5-bill limit, and we wanted to make sure we took care of both of these important things. But as we were coming down onto the floor this morning, one of our staff members came up and said, I just got auto-renewed for this, and it's really hard to cancel, and I can't make this work, and it's really frustrating. So really, that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to put guardrails against something that happens to all of us in today's world, which is online automatic renewals of subscriptions. So that's what we're doing, and I would like to welcome Representative Basenecker onto this bill with me, and I would like to invite him to say a couple of words.
Members, it's getting a little noisy in the chamber. Could you please keep it down so we could hear the folks in the well, and we can hear Representative Basenecker present his first bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The bill as it stands now really does reflect the importance and depth of the stakeholder process that went into this and a commitment to clear and focused language to provide some vital consumer protections. As Representative Kipp mentioned, we've heard from consumers in Fort Collins that there remains a need for a clear and transparent process regarding automatic renewals and in a simple and accessible manner for canceling those renewals if the consumer should so desire. This bill simply creates clear guidelines and strengthens the transparency and accountability in this space. And as my closing remark, I would just ask you to swipe right on this bill.
Any further swiping on House Bill 1239? Representative Van Winkle. The guy I was just standing next to a minute ago.
Well, thank you. Well, I voted against this in committee. It looks like it's a bill in search, a solution in search of a problem. I know some people, they do have trouble on dating sites, and they have had a few, of course, bad dates and things like that. And I'm not sure that's a reason necessarily to run a bill. Of course, the bill now has merged into several topics beyond the single subject, really. And it doesn't really appear to be the duty or job of the state government to regulate how dating websites do their jobs or how people have their dates on those dating websites. There remains questions, especially around do Colorado citizens follow different rules than citizens of surrounding states? What happens if a person moves, say, from New York to Colorado or from Colorado to New York in the middle of this? What laws and regulations and things like that follow them across state lines? So it brings up some commerce clause issues and other issues. So I ask for a no vote.
Representative Kipp.
Consumer protection is the job of the legislature. I urge and I vote. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion on House Bill 1239? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1239. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no. No. Well, the ayes have it. House Bill 1239 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the committee rise and report.
All right, you've heard the motion. The committee will rise and report.
The House will come to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report is under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1239 is amended, passed on second reading in order, engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 30 passed as amended. Senate Bill 171 passed on second reading and ordered, revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Thank you. Representative Tatone. You've heard the motion, members. There are no amendments on the desk. Is there no discussion? Then the question before us is adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Exum, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Exum votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Sirota and Representative Kipp. Representative Kipp, here she comes.
Don't run.
Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine. Oh, no, never mind, you did that. Close the machine. The report passes with 41 ayes, 21 noes, and 3 excused.
Going back into the Committee of the Whole now, and it's Representative Gray.
Representative Gray. You've heard the motion. Representative Gray will come up and take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader, and the coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1232.
House Bill 1232 by Representatives Roberts and Judah, also Senator Donovan, concerning the establishment of a standardized health benefit plan to be offered in Colorado.
Representative Roberts.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1232, the Health and Insurance Committee report, and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the Appropriations Committee report.
In the Appropriations Committee, they made an appropriation. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report to House Bill 1232. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the Health and Insurance report, Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In Health and Insurance, we adopted a strike below, which has now become the full bill, and I imagine will be the committee report that we're having most of our discussion about today. So I figured I'd get started here. Colleagues, I know we're likely going to have a lively debate about this bill today, House Bill 1232, but I thought I'd start with something that I know we all agree on. For too many in our state, health insurance costs are too high. I've heard that statement from members of this chamber on both sides of the aisle. I've heard that from witnesses who testified both in favor and against this bill in committee. But most importantly, I've heard that repeatedly from my constituents ever since I have had the honor of serving in this House. And I know that each and every one of you have heard that too, on both sides of the aisle. Health insurance costs are too high. My co-sponsor and I believe that every Coloradan, regardless of where they live, deserves access to an affordable, quality insurance plan. And I would bet that most of you believe that as well. How we get there is certainly up for debate, but I think that we can all agree that the security of health insurance coverage is something our constituents deserve. Because the last thing that someone needs to think about when they or their family member needs care is, can I afford this? For me and many of my rural colleagues, we represent parts of the state where Coloradans face some of the highest insurance costs and some of the fewest number of choices. This is particularly true in rural Colorado. This bill is written in a way to give our constituents more choices, more competition, higher quality, and lower prices on the individual and small group insurance markets. This bill will help every resident of Colorado, but it will be particularly impactful for those who live in rural and minority communities in our state. This bill is a targeted approach. It is not a revamp of healthcare in Colorado, and there's going to be a lot of hyperbole today. I can just predict it right now that this is going to revolutionize and completely overthrow healthcare in Colorado. That is not true. This is a targeted approach at two small markets in our state that are having the most trouble with health insurance costs. We can pass this bill so that we can help Coloradans who need the help the most get the relief they need, but also protect and build on what's already working well in our state. House Bill 1232, and it was significantly amended in committee because Representative Judah and I took a thoughtful pause upon introduction, heard from stakeholders and listened to committee testimony, took several weeks to work with them and come back with a strike below amendment, and that's what we'll be discussing today. And I want to thank the stakeholders who engaged in that discussion for many months prior to introduction, but particularly after introduction: hospitals, doctors, insurance companies, small businesses, and consumers for their hours and hours and hours of work on this. But this bill now is a targeted and needed way forward to give Coloradans a new and quality and affordable insurance option on the individual and small group market. With the changes we made in committee, the Colorado Hospital Association, the Colorado Association of Health Plans, the Academy of Family Physicians, Children's Hospital with an amendment we adopt today, the Colorado Rural Health Alliance that represents rural hospitals in our state, Club 20, and many others have moved their position from oppose to neutral or monitor. So what this bill, or this new strike below, does, I'll just briefly run through it. First, it creates a new standardized plan. This plan will be created through a robust and open stakeholder process that will ensure that views of community members, health professionals, hospitals, and other providers have input on how to create a quality plan for Coloradans that reflect the needs of each individual community. This will be revolutionary for our state because it will be the first time that we recognize in statute that essential health benefits and community diversity is important in healthcare. It will cover things like mental health exams, preventative care, and much more, in addition to things that are also always normally covered by insurance. It will be crafted with equity in mind, both racial and ethnic equity, but also geographic equity, because we have too much geographic diversity and lack of competition in the rural parts of our state. Second, it will be offered on the individual and small group market. And this is really important because there's a lot of talk about this bill, but let's keep in mind what we're actually talking about. The individual market is 8% of the state. The small group market is an additional 7% of the state. At most, this bill will touch 15% of the state. It's not a lot, but for those who live in that 15% and who are facing extremely high health insurance prices, this bill will be important. Third, it will be offered by existing insurance carriers. We are no longer proposing to create a nonprofit entity that would compete along the private market. This will be offered by existing insurance carriers so we can utilize their already existing infrastructure and save on costs. But it will provide an 18% reduction in premiums over the next 3 years. real money in your constituents' pockets that they don't have to give to buy quality insurance and they can keep in their family's budget. And finally, by passing this bill, we will realize savings that we can then use federal dollars that are already coming to our state to pass through to low-income individuals so that they can buy affordable insurance with those savings. This bill, as rewritten in committee, is good for smaller clinics and good for rural hospitals. Many of our rural hospitals will get paid more under this plan than they currently do. More than they currently do. This is a good bill for our rural hospitals. And we need to get it done this year. 1 in 4 Coloradans on the individual market cannot pay for necessities like food, heat, or rent because of their medical bills. That is unacceptable. 68% of Coloradans who are uninsured have not had preventative care of any kind in the last 12 months because costs are too high. They can't afford to buy insurance. There are constituents in my district and all over the state who are paying absolutely unaffordable premiums for themselves, their families, or their small businesses, and there are far many more who are going without insurance at all just because of what it costs. We can do better in Colorado. This bill is about people's lives at the end of the day. Healthcare is about people's lives. Let's pass this bill so that more people can have the security of health insurance and go see our state's incredible doctors. Go to our state's top-notch hospitals and get the care they need. I'd ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Representative Judah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am not going to go over all of the technical details that my co-prime sponsor so beautifully and eloquently just described, but I am honored to be here standing next to him. About a month ago, I stood before you and I told you my story about what it was like to be diagnosed with epilepsy. What I didn't tell you was that I remember being the daughter of small business owners and not having insurance, going to visit a neurologist for a 15-minute specialty visit, and only to look up at my mom in the reception area writing a $350 check. At the age of 15, not only was that traumatic, but it institutionalized for my family generational trauma. And this is what's happening in rural areas and in BIPOC communities. There is a reality out there that we can agree to on both sides of the aisle. Healthcare costs are too high. Hard stop, period. They are simply too high, and it's un-American. For me, when I think about HB 1232, I think that about the long-term solution that this can create, that we can start to pave a way to create affordable insurance options that work within the existing insurance marketplace to make it easier for Coloradans, including people of all races, geographic locations, and incomes, to afford access to quality health care when they need it. 1 in 5 Coloradans struggling to afford health care coverage and care they need. That's roughly 1 million. That's roughly 1 million and 150,000 of our constituents. People should not forego care that they need because it's too high. And to be clear, this also touches on insured Coloradans. Insured Coloradans, 10% of people with insurance don't see a doctor simply because of costs, even though they are insured. 30% of insured Coloradans haven't had preventative visit care in the last 12 months, and they are insured. 14% of insured Coloradans struggles to pay medical bills, and they are insured. 25% of insured Coloradans are unable to pay other necessities like food and rent, and they are insured. How is this happening in this country? How is this happening in our state, where people who have health care are struggling to keep a roof over their head and food on their table? And it gets worse for people who are uninsured. 40% have skipped doctors and care visits because of costs. 70% have not had preventative care visits in the past year. 30% struggle to pay medical bills, and 90% report the cost of insurance was the primary reason for being uninsured. It's clear that even people with insurance cannot afford their care, but for those who are uninsured, the disparities are staggering. For me, what was important to sign on to this bill was to make sure that the BIPOC community was represented, that they have a voice, that we are not a box to be checked in the urban corridor or throughout Colorado. The uninsured rate for communities of color in Colorado are higher when it's compared to white Coloradans. Clearly, the current system is not working when our BIPOC neighbors are uninsured at a greater rate than white neighbors. 30% of black Coloradans versus 16% of white Coloradans reported they had problems paying medical bills. Black and Latinx Coloradans struggle to pay medical bills and are unable to pay for necessities like food, heat, and rent at higher rates than white Coloradans. The disparities for all people are greater, but regardless of race, the people who don't have insurance are the ones who are struggling the most. Clearly, the status quo is not working. What we have, what we choose to lean on, the only options we do have to lean on when it comes to healthcare is not working. We as lawmakers have a responsibility to our constituents to change that status quo, to make it better so that the next person who's diagnosed with a life-changing diagnosis isn't left with generational trauma, watching their mother write that check knowing they can't afford that. I want to make sure that that little brown or black girl who knows she will have to take medication for the rest of her life will feel safe knowing that she's contributing to the American dream, that her parents are contributing to the American dream, and that healthcare shouldn't be something that she has to question every single day of her life. With that, I urge an aye vote.
Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, members, and thank you, sponsors. First, let me just say how you have made a Herculean effort that I am incredibly impressed with all of the work that you have done. I stand before you with a question, and just something that has been communicated about, and I'm just bringing forward. When we look at how the hospital supports have been laid out and how funding for the hospitals have laid out, you made an excellent case for the wonderful help that's going to rural Colorado. And I'm exceptionally grateful for that wonderful help that's going to rural Colorado. And I have a challenge because in my House district is one of the busiest hospitals, if not the busiest hospital in Colorado, UC Health, the headquarters of the hospital. And it's not only a hospital, but an academic institution. And at that hospital, we have world-class eye care, cancer care, which I was the beneficiary of, orthopedic care, and it goes on and on. And we're constantly pushing more at UC Health to find out what is the next big cure we can come up with. As a result of having all of this specialty care, if a high acuity patient is taken out of a rural hospital, they are very likely flown to a Metro Denver hospital such as, but not only, UC Health. And what we've been watching from the kind of UC Health community is how that reimbursement rate works for that hospital, which is taking the highest level of the highest acuity patients. And I know that this has been considered by you and by you both, and I'm just asking if you could comment on that.
Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to my colleague from Adams County for the question, and I appreciate it. And I certainly agree and appreciate the wonderful work that UC Health does for so many in our state and to advance health outcomes for so many. That brings up, I could talk about this for a long time, but I think you're getting to the question about if a hospital or a health plan finds themselves in the position of a rate-setting hearing or a rate hearing because they have not been able to find an adequate network or meet the affordability targets that they are voluntarily able to negotiate for under the bill. And this wouldn't even happen until 2024. So the first year of the bill starts in 2023, but there is no enforcement on the affordability target in the first year. The affordability target takes effect or the enforcement of it takes effect in 2024. We believe in the majority of the counties, if not most of the counties, that the insurance carriers, the hospitals, and the providers will enter into voluntary negotiations and agree upon a rate, and the state will never get involved in that. In the event that the state does, in order to create an adequate network, because not only do we want this to be a plan that's affordable, we want Coloradans to be able to use it, to be able to go to UC Health for that care. We need to ensure that the network is adequate and an affordable rate. The formula takes into account all of the specific factors that an individual hospital has and accounts for things like acuity, accounts for hospitals that are efficient in cost, in hospitals that do a lot of uncompensated care. So we believe the formula addresses the needs of a facility like UC Health or of an institution like UC Health. The formula will reimburse them at a significantly higher rate than what they get from a Medicare patient. And we did a lot of study in this. This actually started over 2 years ago with a bill that I passed with my colleague from Montrose to study what the rates need to be in order for hospitals not only to break even, but to cover all of their costs and make a profit. The rate that UC Health will get will be higher than that number. And so we do not believe, and we'll continue conversations with them, but we believe the formula adequately accounts for hospitals that have high acuity patients. But here's the real concern for me, is a Coloradan who gets diagnosed with cancer and doesn't have insurance. One, they either don't go to UC Health and don't get any care at all because insurance is too expensive, or two, they go to their hospital and then that hospital has to give uncompensated care. They don't get paid anything. If they are insured by the Colorado option, which will be 7% of the state at most, 7% of the patients that come through their doors will have the Colorado option, UC Health will get paid for that care. And so this, I think, by insuring more Coloradans, we are helping our hospitals, we are helping our insurance carriers, and this is a good step forward, even for high acuity hospitals that we all value.
Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the two sponsors for bringing this conversation forward, because a lot of the things you said, I agree with. Insurance is too high. Healthcare is too high. And I think what is really a settled question is, do we all think it's too high? And I think that's pretty unanimous. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Something needs to be done, and we have to have a conversation. We're all here representing our districts and our constituents, and I think we've all had probably some emails about the concerns of high prices and high insurance. And I know Representative Jodeh mentioned the $350 bill. I think in some places that's pretty cheap now these days, unfortunately. That's on the lower end. It's pretty expensive now. What I want to do is, I'm looking forward to this debate. And I'm looking forward to having some questions answered, because we've had, I know in my area, a lot of concerns about this bill. And I'm sure there's some misunderstandings. I hope they get clarified. I just hope that when we have questions, especially questions from the rural areas, I hope they get answered, because I want to have a respectful debate. And during this debate, I hope that we can go down a path of facts We can go down a path of history. We can go down a path of certain aspects of this bill have already been used in certain states and certain countries historically. I hope we can look towards those facts and those stats to help us understand this bill. I hope we can stay away from theoretical beliefs, and we can keep on the factual beliefs. I hope we can stay away from just saying this won't happen or this aspect will be great, and we can have our questions answered. I hope we can be open to amendments that will relieve some of our concerns and make this bill better. So I just want to stress, I'm ready to have the conversation because we're ready for insurance relief. But we want to stay, but I know for a fact there's a lot of great intentions behind this bill. But I think that the truth, the stats, the facts will get revealed today and we get our questions answered. So I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I'm sure I'll be back. Thank you.
Seems like that about wraps it up. No, there's more conversation to be had, is there? Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to talk a little bit about that $350 bill. I was a small business owner, self-employed. I joined an organization called the National Association of the Self-Employed, and they taught me something real quick about insurance. They pointed out to me that if I took a large deductible insurance plan and I set some money to the side, and that once I hit a threshold, then the insurance plan would kick in and backfill 80 to 90% of my insurance cost after I paid out a certain amount. So I went as a small business owner and I put some money in an account and I called it my annual health care account. Now, why did I do that? Because when I went to go get insurance for my family, the premiums were outrageous. But if I took this health care account that I set aside at the time and had a high deductible, I reduced my insurance premium, which actually paid for that account that I put my money in after the first year, because I had a relatively healthy family. It paid for that. I got every penny back, and then when I went to a clinic or a doctor's office, they said, well, what insurance do you have? And I said, don't have any. Well, we'll discount your bill. So they discount my bill, and I'd write that $350 check. I wrote $500 checks because it was economically beneficial for me to do that. Just because you're a small business owner and you're writing a $350, a $500 check doesn't mean you don't have a good health care plan. Well, guess what happened? The Affordable Care Act came along, and they told me, you have you got inadequate insurance, too high of a deductible. You got to go along with our program. So folks, don't let them stand up here and tell you about health care and writing big checks and making them think that you're paying outrageous amounts for your health insurance. Some of us intelligently made those decisions because we evaluated the health of our family, the amount necessary that it was going to be needed put aside to backfill any of our needs for that year. We had adequate protection in case we crossed a certain threshold. And for 9 years, I kept my wife happy with our health insurance plan. And believe me, that was important. It was important. So when we get up here and we start wringing their hands about what somebody is standing at the counter and writing a check for, you need the rest of the story. Remember Paul Harvey? You younger guys don't. I recommend you go back. He's very viable today with a lot of his stories. You need the rest of the story. Now I want to switch gears a little bit, because let me tell you what is going to happen here.
Yes, Representative Bockenfeld.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that when I'm speaking, that folks in the gallery not heckle me.
The committee will stand in recess. The committee will come back to order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just 1 second, Representative Bockenfeld. Everybody in the committee, welcome back. We heard from both sides of the aisle this morning about how we'd like to conduct ourselves. I would ask everybody from all parties to try to stay as calm as possible, to respect the person who has been recognized by the chair when that person is in the well, and to give everybody else in the room the benefit of the doubt so that we can all get along just the way our leaders asked us to do this morning. With that, Representative Bockenfeld.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Folks, I wanted to shift gears at this point, and I wanted to talk about reality and what's going to happen. Doctors in this country get to choose what level of Medicare and Medicaid that they accept. And there's a requirement that doctors like to have a little more quiet if I could.
Members, please direct your attention to the well or take any conversations that you need to have off of the House floor, please. Representative Bockenfeld.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Doctors get to determine what level of Medicare and Medicaid that they accept. They have a commitment that they have to give back to the communities that they serve, and they do that. Most of that is discretionary. When you force compliance in the medical field on doctors, can you guarantee me that you're not going to reduce the amount of Medicaid and the Medicare that they are already often offering in order to function and operate with this new group of clientele that we're adding to them that is less than what they're getting with Medicaid and Medicare? Because I need to know that. I have a substantial senior citizen population in my district, and I'm down here and I fight for them every day. Some of them have Medicaid. A lot of them are on Medicare. And if they're going to reduce, because you're forcing another insurance program on them that's going to make them provide services less than what they're getting paid for, I want to make sure that my senior citizens and the needy in my district don't start getting reduced care from these same doctors. I need to know and I need to understand that some of the folks in my district, they work in agriculture, they don't make a lot of money, probably don't have insurance, that if they need medical care from a doctor, that doctor sees them for who they are. And yes, some of these people are people of color. And the doctor decides to treat these people and reduce and give that investment back to that community, many times free of charge. If you're going to force a new program on them to take in less than they are going to take, and you make it mandatory, can you guarantee me that those investments the doctors are making in our communities today isn't going to get reduced? That's what worries me about this bill. There's ways that there's going to be reductions on our communities. I know the heart and soul of what some of my colleagues think they're doing. But when reality hits, sometimes you might be hurting the ones you love. And we need to understand that. So those are two very important points that I want to make, is really be thoughtful about what this program is going to really do in the end. And are you accomplishing what you want to accomplish, or if there's a better way? And let's get around all the hyperbole about small businesses are paying too much. Some of them are. They employ, I think 8 out of 10 people are in some type of small business. And they would like to offer better programs than they have. But just because you're standing over somebody's shoulder and watching them write a check doesn't mean that they have poor health care. And I resent the fact that the Affordable Care Act came and told me that I had poor health care. I didn't have poor health care. Every year I backfilled that account that I set aside. And I'll repeat, my wife was happy. And that was one of the most important things to me, is that she was happy with the large deductible because she understood it. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I hope we can continue to work on this bill, because there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and I'm hoping my colleagues will be open-minded to some of the amendments that are going to be proposed on this bill, because I think we can get to a place where we do accomplish what you want to accomplish, and that is to create a program that's going to improve the lives of our constituencies. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Bockenfeld. I do think you do distinguish yourself among most of us here in actually being able to keep your spouse happy. I believe the average spouse of members of the House of Representatives wouldn't say that at this moment, this week in particular. Representative Judah, I had you, but I don't know who's next. Further discussion. Representative Judah.
Thank you. Just quickly, I kept my story short, so I will give you the backstory if it's requested. We are small business owners. We did not have health insurance, ergo a $350 check, which at the time was a lot for a family of 6. And it is my story, it is my narrative, and I think it is valid. And it is something that I carry, and I am unapologetic about it, ergo my decision to co-prime this bill.
Further discussion, Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this is indeed one of the most important topics that we could be having, and not one that I actually would prefer that we have, because it is incited by some aggression by the state into one industry. I mean, the notion of picking an industry and saying it's costing too much, let's force less pricing, lower pricing. Let's start at 20% and negotiate down to 18% and make that the mandate. Everyone's going to reduce by 18%. If that's our role, if that's our proper role, why would we stop with health care? Housing sure is expensive. How about we mandate 18% less on all housing starting forward, and let's mandate that by law. Automobiles. How about food? Everything that we buy, if that is our role as a state government, let's start mandating lower prices, and let's pick something like 18% and force them all to offer that 18% less program, if that is our role. Well, I'd contend that it is an unnatural role. Why is it that pricing is as high as it is in healthcare? And healthcare certainly is a costly venture for all of us. It's costly because it is hard. It's costly because we expect perfection out of doctors, perfection out of hospitals. We come to them with a body that's not working right, ask them to figure that out, to diagnose us without being able to plug in an Ethernet port and do an electronic diagnosis. They've got to, by intuition and training and all kinds of equipment, try to figure out what is the basic cause of whatever our ailment, and then come to a solution that would do us a lot more good than harm. It is complex. That is why it takes many years in training for someone to become an RN, for someone to become a doctor. And then there are specialty areas that they need to be trained in, because this is complex. I remember hearing from students that visited, medical students that visited here in the Capitol a year ago, and one told me that his student loan was already in excess of $500,000. So they take on that risk of completing their degree and getting into the business and then being able to start paying that down, because it takes that level of preparation to provide those levels of service that we demand from them as consumers. It's expensive for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is because of us, especially us, government at the federal level. This has got to be, and I don't know this by stats, but it's just got to be one of the most regulated industries in the nation. When you add more and more and more and more regulation and pile on top of that all of the lawsuits for malpractice when a doctor makes an incorrect judgment, the pricing goes way, way high. And what do we do with House Bill 1232? We add more regulation. Well, we've seen the promises a lot when government attempts to get involved in this most intimate service that we ask for, that we pay for, and we receive the promises of, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan. And we all know that that turned out to be incredibly untrue. I don't know if it was deliberately untrue, but it was absolutely untrue. And as my colleague, Representative Bockenfeld said a moment ago, he got one of those letters. Hundreds of thousands of Coloradans got those letters that told them, hey, your health care plan that you like, you cannot have anymore because it's no longer sufficient to meet the regulation that we've just implemented, whether you liked it or not. Well, where we're at as a state is we are receiving incredible care from our hospitals and from our doctors. It's really good. We actually are something of a hub for the states that are around us. The residents who live in states around Colorado come to Colorado for care. What's likely to happen, oh, and by the way, there is a stat that you can go look up that shows that Colorado is the 6th lowest in national premiums. So no wonder we get this incredible care with the 6th lowest in premiums in the nation, and folks come here for care. So start picturing, though, if 1232 gets implemented, how many hospitals are going to start getting put up just north of the border into Wyoming? It's going to look like driving into Nevada with all the casinos just across the state line, because folks are going to move out of this state to avoid this level of regulation that's going to make it unprofitable, difficult to stay in business. I'm going to conclude with a shocking statement. I've heard from one of the largest providers of insurance and health care in the state, a nationwide organization, Kaiser Permanente. So understand this, that Kaiser, at the initial writing of this bill, when 1232 was initially written, they said, we would simply not be able to operate in the state of Colorado. Okay, it's been rewritten quite a bit, strike below, but here's the quote that I have, so please, everyone listening who uses Kaiser Permanente for your health care, they said in order to meet the 18% requirement, as a quote, we would have to eliminate hospital coverage. Kaiser Permanente would have to eliminate hospital coverage in order to meet the requirements of House Bill 1232. This is not a smart move for us to be voting yes on this bill. Is it a smart move for us to pursue lowering health care costs in Colorado? Of course it is, and that's an agreement we can all start with, but we should not be moving down the government-regulated, government-enforced, nationalized system that this presents. So I'm going to urge you all to start thinking very negatively on your votes coming towards how we wrap up the conversation on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I am excited to come to the well and share stories. As many of you do, we reflect on our own experiences, and we share the stories that we hear from our constituents. And since I decided to embark on the journey of running for office, the #1 primary issue on the Western Slope has been the cost and access to quality health care. When I came down here in 2019 and started my journey, that was what I focused on. And I so lift up the work that has been going on for years and years, not just in this bill, but in a great deal of legislation that came before today. Work that is meaningful for the people that we serve. I really lift up some of the comments that I heard from a few of the speakers who have now come before me. You know, this isn't everyone's story. Some Coloradans have found affordable pathways for health care. That's great. And I do recognize the incredible care that patients in our state are receiving from the doctors, the hospitals, the providers that have spent years of their lives becoming experts in that delivery of care. I so lift up the providers in my community and across the state who are doing new and innovative things to help people afford their services. That is good stuff. But health care costs too much. And it is our responsibility to serve the people on something that is a public good. Somewhere in the 80s, we lost our way, and healthcare became a business. And I will tell you today that it isn't functioning in the free market in the way that maybe we all wish it would. That there was competition that drove down pricing. That doesn't happen. Cost shifting reigns supreme. It happens because we have folks without insurance, and yet, as they should be, they are served, they are cared for. But those costs are moved into the system, and the rest of us pay for it. You know, the movement towards a Medicare for all, universal health care, I believe captures the spirit of what I would hope most of us want, right? The ability to make sure that we and our loved ones can find high-quality health care in the moment we need it most without concerns about the price tag, without having to worry that at some point we go into debt. And for those that continue to make the choice to go uninsured because they simply can't afford it, they can't own a health savings account and park dollars aside for that rainy day when they need them. There are too many people that we need to start serving. So, for those that are working towards innovative solutions, for those that understand how challenging healthcare costs are for those of us on the western slope of Colorado, I beg you to support this bill, this approach. I commend the bill sponsors for the hours upon hours they have spent working with providers and carriers and everyone in the healthcare system who understands the complexities of the system far better than I do. But our bill sponsors have been at the table. I have never seen stakeholding this rich, this rewarding, except maybe when we did reinsurance a few years ago. But I really do believe that this was and is a meeting of the minds, a best effort to do something right for those Coloradans who can't stand here today and say that their health care coverage is okay. I urge a yes vote on House Bill 1232. Thank you.
Representative Pico. And I will just note for everybody that we are on the committee report, but the committee report is the bill. So if you want to talk about the bill, we're just going to let that happen. It's not normally what we do here, but people can discuss the bill given it was a strike below. Representative Pico.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was going to speak to the bill. I can hold those comments if you would prefer.
No, the policy, the committee report has all of the important policy in it because it was a strike below. So I wanted to recognize to everybody that I understand that, but I think for the purposes of this debate, it makes more sense to discuss any part of this policy that you think is important at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in vehement opposition to this bill, and I want to touch on a couple of things. There are an awful lot of what we just heard I absolutely agree with. Health care costs are too high, but the question would be, why are they too high? And I would offer the very pointed observation that it's because of government interference within this marketplace. You have an awful lot of cost shifting that goes on, and that's because there's a lot of people who don't pay, and everybody else then has to pick those costs up. There's an awful lot of cost involved in providing health care. Those costs have to be paid by somebody. Let's start with the providers a little bit. This bill proposes to cap payments to providers, and that's absolutely the wrong thing to do. You absolutely have to walk back out of that and let the marketplace operate. We heard about if you like your health plan, you can keep your health plan, and we saw that fell apart. It very obviously fell apart. And every one of us has seen what gets covered and what our copays are, and that has all shifted. But an awful lot of that is because government mandated what those particular items were that had to be covered by the insurance companies, and we all pay for things that a lot of us would prefer not to pay for or have no need for. That drives up the cost. That is a cost shift to those who aren't paying for the care that they get, to those people who are paying for the care that they're not getting or don't need. It costs an awful lot to set up medical practice. I've got 2 kids who are doctors, and I've watched them go through all that training that they got there, all the medical schools that they went through. One of my sons spent 16 years in training between all the different colleges and post-college stuff, medical school, and everything that followed before he was certified to operate. He and his wife, also a doctor, they met in medical school. They had over $500,000 10 years ago when they started, and they're getting to pay that down. Those bills are not free, you know. They have to pay those bills back, and that's part of the cost of health care. To be able to train and equip and entice into the field people to enter the medical field and go through 16 years of training before they start earning their first dollar. And then they have to set up an office, they have to set up a practice, they have to pay the staff. So by the time you go in there and pay your, I think, was it $350 for your visit, that's because they got to pay everybody in there. And state and federal regulations mandate a lot of what they have to cover. If you really want to lower the cost, try deregulating it, not more regulation. The biggest problem with this is mandatory participation, and what that cost share is right now. Right now, Medicaid, Medicare, TRICARE, I'm some experience with that, some of us have TRICARE, they pay below cost. They pay rates that are below the cost it takes to serve by the time you pay back all of those items. So I've got an email here I'm going to paraphrase from, and I've heard the same points from many, many doctors. Many doctors who will leave the state or leave practice. And the impact of that is going to be most devastating to the people that many here really care about. The people that you most care about are going to be the people who are most hurt by what happens when something like this comes into place. Mandatory participation, mandatory rate setting. Physicians want to work on solutions. Physicians are the key to decreasing the costs. The providers as a whole are key to decreasing the costs. But you aren't going to do that by mandating payments that are below cost. Physician censure, fines, limitation of the ability to exercise the right to practice medicine. You're going to drive people out of the business. You're going to drive people out of taking care of people. No other state in the U.S. has a mandatory participation, and that's probably going to fail in the courts. Passage of this legislation will cause high-profit payers, I think that's the term we've heard, to cancel contracts outside of their program. Let's be clear what's going to happen. You're going to drive the high businesses out of the state because they won't be able to afford to come here. They won't be able to afford to stay here. What you're doing is economic warfare on a critical part of our economy. Public option savings of 18% over 2 years. The payers will maintain their profit margin by cost shifting with cuts to the physicians and increased rates to big businesses. And then the big businesses will walk. This will do the exact opposite of what it's intended to do. It's not what you want to do. We want a lower cost of care. We all do. But you can't have it at the cost of cost shifting. And what you're going to do is drive people out of the business, and by the time, and when supply and demand, there won't be anybody providing the supply. I vehemently urge a no vote on this and take it back and let's start working a real solution. Deregulation, not more regulation. Thank you.
Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as this debate progresses, I see a certain tone where we're giving examples, specific examples of concerns. Like I said at the very beginning, we all have constituents who are hurting and need help. So, if we say Kaiser Permanente is going to pull out, and then, we have a response of, but we need cheaper health insurance. We already know we need cheaper health insurance. We already know there's an issue. But what I want is if, a defense of the bill, answering questions. I would like, we have doctors here, we have nurses here, we have people who are in stakeholding. If Kaiser Permanente is saying they're going to pull out of certain areas, I'd love the other view of that's not going to happen. This is better for them. If we have doctors saying they're going to pull out, I'd love to hear that's just not true. I hope that a lot of my beliefs are not true. And I would hope that we can have a conversation from different areas saying, Shane, you misunderstand. Kaiser Permanente is not going to pull out. And here's why it's better for them. These doctors aren't going to leave. These hospitals are not going to struggle. You're misunderstanding, Shane. We all know our constituents are hurting. But those stories are not answers to our questions and concerns. So we'd like a conversation. We'd like a response. We'd like to know the doctors love it, the nurses love it, and here's why. We all got sad stories, but those aren't answers to our questions. We got legitimate concerns, and we're gonna read off some of these concerns from specific groups. And we'd like, if I got a bill and it's being misunderstood, I want to defend it. If there's a misunderstanding, I want to clarify. Because if there's something I don't understand, I want a clarification. So hopefully we can get these answers of why we have so many people contacting us with concerns. And again, a story about a constituent having expensive health insurance is not an answer to our questions. Specific answers are specific answers. We got legitimate concerns. I want to hear from some professionals here. I want to see some defense of this bill. Thank you.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the committee rise, report progress, and beg sit to leave again at 5 p.m. Thursday, May 6th. That's what today is.
You have heard the motion. Is there objection? Seeing none, the committee will rise, report progress, and be granted leave to sit again at 5 p.m. on Thursday, April 6th.
The House will come to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the report.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it as follows. It is risen, reports progress, and begs leave to sit again at 5 p.m. on May 6th.
Thank you. The committee will sit again at 5 p.m. on May 6th. Thank you. We're in recess. The House will come back to order. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members, we're saying 5 p.m. with the hopes that all of our afternoon committees will have their work wrapped up around then. Again, pay attention to your phones and to your caucuses to let you know when to come back. We will do a call of the House. Right now, the plan is 5 p.m. We appreciate all the work we've done so far this morning and look forward to more this evening. And with that, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, I move that the House stand in recess until 5 p.m. today.
You've heard the motion. No objections. The House will stand in recess till 5 p.m. today.